Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, so what happens if you're a startup trying to change the world, but the very investors who should be your biggest fans are asking for proof you just can't give them? Today, we're digging into a new playbook that's designed to fix that exact problem, bridging that massive gap between good intentions and hard evidence.
All right, let's break this down. You've got two different kinds of companies out there. On one side, you have the unicorns. For them, the game is all about one thing: massive, fast growth. But then you have impact startups. They're playing a completely different sport. They have this dual mission. Yeah, they need to be a successful business, but they also have to create real positive change in the world. And that dual mission, well, that's where you run into the big dilemma. How on earth do you prove you're actually doing good, especially when the whole system is really just built to measure one thing: profit? And look, this isn't some abstract philosophical problem. It is a huge practical roadblock. Because even the investors who love the mission, the ones who want to help, they don't just hand out money based on a nice story. They need cold, hard data. They want concrete evidence that a startup can actually deliver on its promises. And when it's too difficult or too expensive to get that proof, something really dangerous can happen: mission drift. That's the moment when the pressure just to survive, to make payroll, forces that amazing, world-changing mission onto the back burner. And sometimes it stays there for good. Now, you might be thinking, well, aren't there tools for this? And you're right, there are. But here's the catch. The tools we have are just a terrible fit. They weren't built for a small, scrappy company that's short on cash, time, and people. The old school approaches tend to fall into three main buckets, right? You've got these process-based models that try to map out every single cause and effect. Then you've got scorecards and rating systems. And finally, you have these synthetic indicators that are supposed to make everything comparable. Each one comes with its own set of headaches for a startup. First off, they're just way too complex. Seriously, for a small team, trying to use some of these frameworks feels like you need a PhD in advanced statistics just to get started. Second, they are incredibly resource-intensive. They need tons of data, tons of time. And think about it. A young startup is all hands on deck trying to build a product and find its first customers. They do not have the bandwidth for months of complicated reporting. And maybe the biggest problem of all? There's no standard. So an investor gets reports from two different startups, and it's impossible to compare them. It's the classic apples to oranges problem, but it's more like apples to engine parts. They just don't line up. And this quote from the researchers who wrote the paper just nails it. There's this fundamental misfit between what a startup can realistically do and what an investor expects to see. Okay, so the old way is broken. What do you do? Well, instead of just pointing out the problem, these researchers decided to actually build a better way, from the ground up. And this new tool wasn't just invented in a lab somewhere. They used this really smart three-step design process. First, a prototype went out to a bunch of industry experts. Then, they took what they learned and tested the next version with actual startups. And finally, they refined it all with feedback from investors to make sure it worked for everybody. So, what came out of all that work? A brand new practical tool. It's a simple, streamlined artifact that's designed for the real world, for the startups and the people who fund them. And here is where it gets really clever. The whole thing is boiled down to just three core areas: environmental, economic, and social. And look at the indicators. Instead of 100 different metrics, it focuses on just a few simple things a startup can actually track. Things like basic CO2 emissions, your growth rate, which is just a straightforward way of asking, is the business working? And really important diversity numbers on your team. Simple, but powerful. It also tackles that theory of change thing, which is usually super academic and complicated. This tool just condenses it into a simple fill-in-the-blank sentence. Any startup can use it to explain exactly who they help, what problem they solve, and how they do it. It's brilliant. And what about for the investors? Remember that whole apples to oranges mess? Well, this is the fix. The tool gives them a really clear visual way to benchmark companies against each other. For the first time, they can look at startup A, B, and C and get a standardized snapshot of their potential impact. Problem solved. So, let's bring it all home. What does this actually mean for our impact startup? Well, it means they finally have a way to turn all that passion and ambition into something they can actually measure and show to the world. When you get right down to it, this tool is designed to solve every single one of the problems we talked about. It gives investors the transparency they need. It gives the startups' claims real legitimacy. That, in turn, helps them get the investment they need to grow. And maybe most important of all, it gives them a simple roadmap to stay on track and avoid that dreaded mission drift.
And that leaves us with this final, really powerful idea. By making it so much easier to prove you're doing good, we're not just creating a new spreadsheet, we're knocking down one of the biggest hurdles for people with world-changing ideas. So the real question is, if we do that, what amazing new solutions are finally going to get the chance they deserve?